Hey, just a heads up, this video contains spoilers for content that occurs after both Heaven's Ward and A Realm Reborn. So, if you haven't beaten the main story up to and including Endwalker, I highly suggest that you do not watch this video and come back later if you care about spoilers. Okay? Okay. You've been warned, so don't go and blame me. Zenos is a complex character. I know it might not seem like it. It might be believed that he is just this bland but attractive villain who just wants to duel, which, I mean, that isn't necessarily an incorrect description of the Prince of Garlemald, but there is more to him than just that. On the surface, of course, that is what he is. Zenos is a man obsessed with battle. He just wants to duel. He wants to cause chaos in the name of said duel, which feeds into the suffering of others for his own benefit and his own entertainment. This makes him come off as a very, very sadistic character, and that's usually where the line in the sand is drawn. Zenos is just a sadistic, self-absorbed villain for the sake of giving an expansion like Stormblood and antagonist that isn't an Ascian. But that could be the furthest thing from the truth, because like most things in Final Fantasy XIV, when you start looking deeper, when you start to ask why does Zenos want to duel, why is he so obsessed with battle, the complexities of the man start to kick in. Now, I'm not trying to say that Zenos is a perfectly written character, but he does become far more than just this sadistic piece of garbage that might have overstayed his welcome. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Today, we shall give a brief psychological and character profile of Garlemald's heir apparent, Zenos ye Galvus. According to the Zenos short story detailed in the book Chronicles of Light, Zenos' upbringing as heir to Garlemald was more of a curse to the young man than a boon. His mother died of illness when he was very young, and his father, Varys Galvus, was hardly around for his son's upbringing, likely due to the many campaigns being waged by the Garlean Empire across Hydaelyn. This forced Zenos to be raised in the fine company of the royal family's many servants, many of whom, if not all, Zenos considered to be little more than machina or automa. To quote an excerpt from the story, while the young prince was surrounded by countless servants, they were as machina to him, trundling about on invisible rails bereft of independent thought. Nor did he hold the learned men and women who served as his tutors in much higher regard. His brilliant mind found their lessons, their very existence, monotonous, and he preferred the silent company of books. This also tells us that despite his depressing youth, Zenos was very much an intellectual, a brilliant mind that was far above those who were supposed to teach him. His genius far outweighed the intellect of those paid to tutor him, and when he was taught, he found it all rather dull, monotonous, to directly quote the book. And this forged Zenos into the blank, expressionless man we see in something like Stormblood, for he was a child without a childhood. Going back to the story, with such an upbringing, he could not choose but be different from other children. Indeed, it could be said that he was never a child at all. Innocence and playfulness were quite alien to him, the former expunged by his earliest schooling, and the latter afforded no outlet. His days were uniformly joyless, and he went about his scheduled tasks with apathy, and thus did he pass his first 4 and then summers in a steel gray-blue of tedium. Of course, this all somewhat changed when Zenos underwent one of his routine training exercises in warfare, for instead of the dull tutors he was used to, this day a man from what I can only assume to be Alamigo would be his trainer. And this trainer, this man, would do what none other in the Empire would. He was hard. He did not treat Zenos like a child. He treated the prince as an equal. To put it bluntly, this swordsman beat his ass repeatedly, and for the first time, Zenos actually felt something. Zenos had someone in his life that he felt as if he had to rise above, that he could rise above. Zenos had found meaning, a purpose more than to just rule. Up until this point in his life, he had faced no challenge worthy of the name, and the one that his newest tutor presented instilled him with a burning sense of purpose, a reason to rise each morning, rooted not in duty, but desire. So per the excerpt, Zenos began to crave battle, crave a way to rise above his tutor and surpass the man's challenge. Zenos found a way to do that, of course, and he used this new technique, one you're probably going to be familiar with, the unyielding blade, to defeat and slay his teacher. So it was that Zenos Galvus' first true battle came to an end. Without further ceremony, he quit the training hall, washed and put on the fresh clothes. By the time he sat at the table for his evening repast, he had quite forgotten the name and face of his tutor, and when he settled into bed, he prayed as earnestly as a boy of his years might that one day he would cross paths with a worthy foe and feel such exhilaration as the heroic epics promised. And then, with a sigh, he closed his eyes, and he knew the soundest sleep he had ever known. Despite killing his teacher, Zenos' experiences with the Alamegan swordsman had blessed the Garlean Prince with a lust for combat, a desire to find a foe worthy enough to challenge him as his mentor once did. Of course, it would be some time before that would happen, and in the years between then and that fateful day in Raelgar's Reach, Zenos would come to quell the Dolmen uprising and take his place on the throne of Alamigo once Gaius Van Belsar was thought to have given up the ghost. Just like his upbringing, these years would be the most tiresome of them all. He didn't care for Garlemald, its traditions, the people of Alamigo, or those back in Ilsabard. He just wanted to fight someone worthy, to find glorious purpose. Many would step up to the challenge, of course, but all would fail. And Zenos was bored. Life was tiresome, and he felt just like he did now as he did as a child. But let us now jump to that fateful day at Raelgar's Reach. Tasked with uprooting the Alamegan resistance from their base at Raelgar's Reach, Zenos set out and did what he learned to do best: fight. Many died to Zenos' blade that day, and many more were wounded, those among them being Lys Hext and Y'shtola Rule. But despite the resistance's defeat, something that happened fairly easily, Zenos had found a challenger. We, the Warrior of Light, managed to put up more of a fight than any other at the Reach. And this is important, because later on, when the efforts of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn were brought to the Far East, Zenos would follow suit. And Zenos, who was similarly tasked with uprooting the Doman resistance from their base in the region, he was ambushed along the road in Yangsha by Ugiri Mistwalker and the Warrior of Light. Ugiri was swatted aside, but the Warrior of Light, just like their first encounter, managed to put up a fight, even more so this time around than the first. Of course, we lost, but our battle gave Zenos a sense of meaning. Like his tutor, we made him feel something, that same rush for warfare that he's craved for so long. We gave him another reason to get up in the morning. Glorious purpose.
Oh, how right I was to spare your life. Hear me, hero. Endure. Survive. Live. For the rush of blood. For the time between the seconds, live. For the sole pleasure left to me in this empty, ephemeral world, live!
And just like that, just like before, Zenos became obsessed. And we were that obsession. And no, it's not because he loved us. Get out of here, you weirdos. And being how Zenos is, he Well, like I said, he became obsessive. He obsessed over the Warrior of Light and the glorious duel we would share with him. To that end, to even our levels of power, just like with how we unlocked the secrets of the unyielding blade, Zenos went above and beyond and artificially blessed himself with the thing that made us, Heidel's chosen, strong enough to kill gods. Zenos gave himself the Echo. He changed the very essence of his being in the name of combat with us. Then, with that said power, he dueled us in the royal court of Alamigo, and when we had warmed up enough upon him, Zenos used the Echo and absorbed the very essence of Shinryu into his body, becoming one with a primal forged from pure rage. Again, the Warrior of Light and Zenos fought, and we emerged victorious.
The hunter has indeed become the hunted. And yet, there is only joy. Transcendent joy that I have never known. How invigorating, how pure this feeling.
Is that what this was all about? All the meaningless death and destruction, so you could feel something?
Meaningless? Men die that others may live. Those who survive are stronger for it. Not that you could ever understand. To have stood upon this great stage of fools. To have played my part to perfection. Oh, this moment. Let it be enshrined in eternity. My heart beating out of time. So clear, so vivid, so real. So real. Coward!
Stop!
Farewell, my first friend. My enemy.
Believing that his glorious purpose had been fulfilled, that he was to only play practice for the Warrior of Light, Zenos presumed that this was the end. Despite fueling himself of a primal akin to Bahamut, despite granting himself the will of Hydaelyn, Zenos was not strong enough to defeat us, but there were no hard feelings. We had delivered Zenos exactly what he had wanted, a competitive 1v1 between equals, something to make Zenos feel something in that cold, dead heart of his. He got his wish, propelling us from foe to friend, and thus Zenos ended his life, but we know that this wasn't the end. For not long after the liberation of Alamigo, Zenos returned, quelled Elidibus from his lifeless corpse, murdered his father, and plotted his next great battle with the Warrior of Light with his one true friend.
I heard the Ascians speak of Zodiac and Hydaelyn. Even the will of this star is but a construct of our own making. We shall gorge upon their strength, and then, my friend, our contest shall begin anew.
Of course, it had been some time since we, the Warrior of Light, last engaged the Garlean Prince in battle, and we as players are forever in pursuit of a greater challenge, of greater loot and renown. To us, Zenos was nothing by this point. He was a past foe, someone we struggled against and overcame. Between our meetings in Stormblood and Endwalker, we traveled to an entirely different world and defeated the Ascians, a threat that we considered to be much larger than any rogue Garlean. Zenos, at this point in time, was nothing to us, and Zenos knew this. He knew whatever duel we might have would not be as satisfactory as the last, due only to the fact that we had already bested him and moved on.
Does the pursuit of prey you have bested before excite you? Of course not. Absent the challenge, the thrill, your prize is a hollow victory. Butchery. Perhaps you think that to be the extent of my promise. I have no doubt fallen in your estimation since Alamigo. Fair enough. But do not let your disdain deprive us, of an opportunity to craft an even more majestic moment of euphoria. I have been honing my craft as I set the stage for our reunion.
So Zenos knew he would need to do something terrible, something unforgivable for the Warrior of Light to see him as a threat to be taken seriously. And what better way to do that than by siding with the very thing we saw as the greatest of all known enemies, an Ascian. Together, Zenos and the mad Ascian Fandaniel plotted the end of the world. Fandaniel, who sought to destroy the world, for life is without meaning, so it should not exist. Zenos, who sought to destroy the world in pursuit of his life's meaning, for it gives him glorious purpose. Quick side note, Endwalker is a very poetic expansion, and the relationship between Zenos and Fandaniel is almost just as interesting as the relationship between Zenos and the Warrior of Light. You have a dude who wants to end life because it has no meaning, pairing up with a dude who is in pursuit of his life's meaning. That is a deep philosophical relationship, and I just wanted to point it out. Anyways, as we know from recent events, in order to elevate himself to the top of the Warrior of Light shit list, Zenos and Fandaniel sought to reshape the technology of Garlean into a single beacon that would allow for travel to Heidelin's singular remaining moon to break Zodiark from his chains. All the while this effort occurred, Zenos schemed how to bring himself onto the Warrior of Light's radar, which he would eventually do by capturing us during our campaign in Garlean, switching bodies with the Warrior of Light, and nearly killing our friends as us.
Who are you?
Of course, this plan failed, which you could argue that this was supposed to happen, or that it really didn't matter, for it was only done to further our hatred for the now shunned Garlean Prince. And I say this because the initial plan Zenos had with Fandaniel was for Zenos to take control of Zodiark, much akin to what he did to Shinryu, giving him that much needed elevation on the Warrior of Light. But as we discovered for ourselves, that was not the case, and Zenos' grand plan was laid to ruin when Fandaniel merged with the heart-absent Zodiark and forced the Warrior of Light into a contest far more difficult and far more important than Zenos. Then when Zodiark was slain, the protection held over Heidelin waned, and the final days were upon the world once again. Zenos knew, the hero that we are, that the Warrior of Light would rather focus on averting this doomsday event than an absconded royal, and so Zenos departed and left us to play hero.
Slavering beasts gather at your gates, ravenous and eager. Already you turn to them and away from me. I must go forth once more in search of power far beyond the might of Shinryu. power to make your heart run over with rage. For the eldest of primals was a betrayal of promise. A pathetic creature incapable of inspiring true despair. That's what I crave. Pure, unadulterated despair. We shall see.
Once again, much to his dismay, Zenos was sidelined, but he would get his chance to come face to face with his destiny toward the end of the final days. Using the powers of Shinryu, Zenos traveled to the end of creation to meet with his bestest of friends and aided them in the defeat of the End Singer, allowing for us to use his back as a boss arena. That is pretty badass. And when all is said and done, and Meteion was no more, nothing remained to distract the Warrior of Light from their contest with Zenos.
You mean to return to the world where you are hailed as a hero. Hear me then. Not as a hero, but as simply you. As I learned in Alamigo, you are a formidable foe. Stronger than any I have faced. Against you, I need bring my all to bear. I need burn through the candle of my life. This is the sole pleasure I know, and it is the sole pleasure I have to share. And so I come before you, to issue challenge and offer singular bliss. If you wish to walk away, I will not stop you. You value life. You do not burn yours save for reasons you deem worthy. Reasons such as those which brought you here. The salvation of a world and its people. The motives of a hero true. But there is more to you than that. You know this to be true. As surely as you know the thrill of pushing your body and soul to their limits. Of confronting ever mightier foes, dancing ever closer to the precipice, wondering if this will be the one to finally fill the void. Such pleasures you seek for their own sake, and no other reason. Is this not so, adventurer? Ha! Acceptance! At long last! The conflagration of our clash will scorch even the stars!
So it was there, on the edge of creation, that Zenos Viator, Galvus, engaged with the Warrior of Light in a final duel at the edge of the universe, a place where, in the words of Zenos, the stars shall bear witness to their final contest. And it was here that Zenos met his end once and for all.
That I should lose again. How disappointing. Never have I understood those around me, understood their obsessions. Besieged by their banality, the world is a mire of tedium and trivialities. But in these fleeting moments, there is a spark, blinding, brilliant. Gone too soon. What of you, my mirror? Born into this world, bestowed name, bid to seek out strife and adventure. Was this life a gift or a burden? Did you find fulfillment?
When it was all said and done, at the end of the day, Zenos was a man obsessed. After years of a dull, tiring life, he found purpose to get up in the morning in the art of combat. First, it was his trainer, then it was us. To give a more simplistic explanation, imagine a piece of candy. You eat the candy, it tastes good, maybe you'll have some more, but imagine now that this piece of candy was the first piece of candy you ever ate. It gives you a sugar rush, you feel great, and so you want more, a lot more, but then the candy gets sold out, or you eat it all, or whatever, you start to lose that feeling, that the rush the candy gave you, you want to replicate it, so you try other candy, but none tastes as good as that one, the first candy you ever tried, and so your sole goal is to get more of that same candy. That is Zenos. We are Zenos' candy. We are the Klondike bar that he will do anything for. Because we, in the battles we fought against him, are the greatest thing he ever tasted and not anything else comes close. And the reason why I akin this to something as trivial as candy is because a child's favorite thing is candy. And despite growing up, Zenos never actually grew up. He was pampered and stunted by his father's yes men, and he never took on any responsibility that was not in the name of fighting. In essence, the life of Zenos was the life of an obsessive child that thought nothing of anything or anyone besides himself and his purpose. And I feel as if our final confrontation with him really symbolizes this. It is just him, us, and the edge of the universe. There is nothing else. The only thing that matters is the man or woman across from him and the duel they shall share. Even still, this is something that Zenos realizes. He understands that his reasons are awful, that his goals are at the expense of others, that they are selfish. He even says so to Julius.
Would you be happier had I a good reason?
What?
If my motives met with your approval, would you no longer resent the outcome? If so, then perhaps a beast's skin would suit you better.
But going back to what I stated at the very beginning of this video, he was not a man that was without reason. He was not that self-absorbed, for it was Alice's final words to him in Garlemald.
Yet if you only pursue your hedonistic pleasures and pay no heed to the plight of others, then no one will give you the time of day. You will never get what you want, not even the battle you pine for so dearly.
That saw Zenos indirectly admit to the flaws of his plan by shelving his duel long enough to help us, to help the one person he truly cared for, defeat despair itself. Then he later reasons with the Warrior of Light and basically admits that he does not expect the savior of Hydaelyn to throw away his life like how Zenos wishes for him to.
And so I come before you to issue challenge and offer singular bliss. If you wish to walk away, I will not stop you. You value life. You do not burn yours save for reasons you deem worthy. Reasons such as those which brought you here. The salvation of a world and its people. The motives of a hero true.
In that moment, might just be just a smidge, but Zenos shows compassion and understanding for things bigger than himself. He sees and acknowledges our glorious purpose. But it must be stated, Zenos' purpose in life, his ultimate goal, it's a double-edged sword. Sure, Zenos wants to duel, he wants to fight us, but what if he wins? What if he loses? What if Zenos was able to kill the Warrior of Light? Well, Zenos is like a dog chasing a car. He wants to catch it, but he doesn't know what he'll do with it if he ever succeeded. And there is a lesson to be learned there, which is something all great villains have. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more in the future, please be sure to like and subscribe for more content relating to Final Fantasy XIV, World of Warcraft, Borderlands, and Star Wars. Of course, if you have any specific topics you would like for me to cover in the future regarding FF14, the game, or its lore, you can leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll be sure to read each and every one of them. Thanks for watching, and remember well.